year that you can think you're prepared for, but you're really not because you haven't been put in that position. And I think in virtually every case, he handled it really well. And so that's been exciting to see.
How did you handle the situation? You're going to obviously never have a situation coming up with some legendary veteran players, and DeMario, and even Taysom. Have you thought about how you'll handle that, what their futures could be, letting them test free agency, or maybe what the plan could be?
Yeah, I think, and it's not just specific to those guys, but there's a process that we go through at the end of the season. It's an evaluation, and then it's a determination of, hey, do they want to come back? Do we want?
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? TJ Jones here with you on the State of the Saints podcast. And right now, we're checking out the end of the year press conference with General Manager Mickey Loomis and Saints head coach Kellen Moore. It's already in progress. I'm pretty sure some of you probably may be a little bit ahead and probably been watching it, but just wanted to log in and just check it out together. So I apologize if some of you are probably ahead. It's been going on probably like 20 minutes before I even came on live. But if you feel like stopping by, we're going to be taking a look at it, maybe break it down and, talk about a little bit of some of the things that, that they're saying. So once again, the press conference, end of the year, Mickey Loomis and head coach Kellen Moore.
Want them back. And then even that, there's still, there's a lot of variables, What's the contract situation? What's the timeline? There's just too many variables for me to give you a definitive answer on any of that. But look, I'm excited to hear when those guys declare they want to be back here. And I would say on the surface, we definitely want to have them back. But there's just so many other variables that exist that I can't really answer that question right now.
Is there anything from this season that was super instructive for you? Is there any sort of stuff you went through this year where you kind of identified like you need to change that process here or anything like that?
Oh, no question. I think that's the beauty of what we're going through right now is, Mickey's kind of alluding to this whole offseason process. It's just a really awesome opportunity to grow as a team, certainly myself individually, to just go back through the entire season, our entire process from the offseason program to how we went through the draft process, all the way leading into the season. And so there's definitely opportunities to grow, get better. I feel like credit to our guys, again, like we've said a lot, the people that we have in this building are really special. And I think that's certainly the foundation of this, from the connection between the personnel department, the coaching, everyone else that works in this building from a day-to-day process, the players, the buy-in, the connection, I think is really, really special. And so if you start there and just keep getting better, we'll be on the right path.
All right, so I want to allude to something I'm seeing in the chat. Look, I think Kellen Moore did a really good job down the stretch, and I think that we all can agree to that. The season didn't start off the way that we wanted it to start off. Of course, you expect for your team to, be better than you even anticipate, but that wasn't the case. And Saints fans went into 2025 understanding that it was a rebuild, and there were a lot of things that this team did in years past. The chickens were coming home to roost, so to speak. So I think down the stretch, we've seen Kellen Moore become a better version of himself as a head coach. And that's all you can ask for. This is a guy in his first head coaching campaign. I would have been more concerned about the state of the head coaching job for the New Orleans Saints if the New Orleans Saints would have continued to struggle despite the fact of going through a quarterback change and things pretty much staying the same. You look at teams like, the Jets and some of these other franchises that have hired new head coaches, Brian Callahan, who was recently fired by the Tennessee Titans, right? There wasn't too much that you can actually build on. It was just back-to-back terrible seasons, right? And you're actually replacing him. You replaced a coach in Mike Vrabel who went on to the New England Patriots, and they struggled, right? With Gerard Mayo, he comes in, makes them better. So when you see those type of things happening with other organizations, you kind of size your organization up against, some of these other ones, and you see where you are. But I think that Kellen Moore did a really good job down the stretch. The team responded to him. You can tell that they like him, and that's all you can ask for is improvement. So I don't think that is grounds for him to get fired. I just think that we just get too fire happy when it comes to these coaches. Like it's a process. You can't expect these coaches to move mountains and expect for these coaches to go into these difficult situations and just turn everything around overnight. Like some situations are probably better than others. Maybe the infrastructure is a little bit better. Maybe the contractual situations are ideal. Maybe they brought some really good guys in, had a really good draft, but we know that the Saints didn't have some of those things, right? So it was going to be an uphill battle regardless if it was Kellen Moore or a seasoned veteran coach that probably won a lot in the league. So credit to him for steering the ship and keeping it on course. And as a matter of fact, steering it in the right direction down the stretch, winning 4 of their last 5.
There was a lot of fluctuation when it came to the roster, whether it be trades or injuries. How much did that impact developing the offense at the pace you wanted to?
Say that again, sir.
The fluctuation of the roster came to injuries and trades. How much did that fluctuate and maybe alter the timeline of developing the offense the way you wanted to?
I just say that's going to happen every single year. Injuries, adjustments to the roster, and just your ability to pivot is really important. And so certainly we feel like there's a lot of opportunities to grow, to get better collectively. And I think that's the beauty of what this offseason is going to provide us is just a really clean platform to use last year as an excellent resource to evaluate it, dig into everything, and then find a really good path moving forward.
Kellen, do you anticipate any changes to your staff?
Well, certainly, we feel great about the staff. It's an awesome staff. Really appreciate these guys coming together. And, you always have to stay ready for different adjustments. We have a really talented staff. And so you got to be ready for the opportunities that may arise for these guys. And so we'll go through that whole process as we go through this. But it's been a really good staff.
Yeah, I don't think they need to change anybody on the staff. I think they did a really good job. Like the only coach I think that you may want to look at is maybe Phil Galliano, who is the special teams coach. Special teams kind of struggled throughout the season. So maybe if you want to take a look at special teams coordinators in the offseason. But I think that from the defensive line coaches, defensive coordinator Brandon Staley, and also just the offensive, coaching staff consisting of Doug Nussmeier as the offensive coordinator and Kellen Moore calling plays. I think that the Saints have the right coaches. I mean, the only concern that you have is, maybe a coach gets a promotion and leaves. But I don't know if the New Orleans Saints are going to have that just yet. They're probably going to be more coaches if the Saints can, replicate some of the things they did down the stretch defensively to start the season. Then you'll probably see some of these coaches getting opportunities and promotions. But I don't think that's something that you're going to have to deal with going into 2026. But you definitely, in my opinion, the only coach that you really have to consider maybe moving on from is special teams coordinator Phil Galliano.
Guys, just how much did it alter the vision after Derek decided to retire, and just what was that like kind of going through just like a complete change of plan at that time?
Well,
Man, nobody cares
I would
about no
say
Derek
that
Carr, man. That ship is
it
sailed.
just catches you a little bit off guard. So you got to
Sorry.
calibrate. Okay, what's our plan going forward? Early in the off season, it's different than it is later, and then I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard to describe, really. It's a good question, but it just changes your course a little bit.
I think the whole Derek Carr retirement thing did kind of change the course of the New Orleans Saints organization. But I will say this. You probably would have still drafted Tyler Shuck in the second round, even if Derek Carr would have came back to the Saints, because, you still needed a quarterback of the future. And we know that Derek Carr in a Saints uniform had some injuries and, he missed some games, right? But I guarantee you, you probably wouldn't see Derek Carr leaving a game prematurely as often as he did if Tyler Shuck was, competing with him, during the offseason. I can tell you that right now. As soon as he started seeing that zip on that football, homeboy would have been limping out there, dragging himself out there. But in the process, man, it kind of sped up the process of the New Orleans Saints. helping them to basically embrace the rebuild, because I think the New Orleans Saints would have kept on trying to do some of the things they've been doing that has kept them behind the 8 ball if Derek Carr would have still been on the team.
Really the best way to describe it.
You know, there had any conversations with Derek? Do you think he could possibly play again, and how would that impact the organization? You all have the rights to him?
I mean, he's on our retired list, so no, I haven't had any conversations with him.
Kellen,
What they need to talk
navigated
about.
his first season and came in, I'm sure you had a plan to how you were going to handle some of the adversity you did. Was it more difficult? Was it what you expected? I mean, just kind of take us through where you were at maybe a year ago and where you're at now.
I think it's something we talked about. I think that's the thing that acknowledge it going into the season. We could be in a playoff run right now. We would have already faced adversity as well. Every team faces adversity. So I think it's how you handle adversity and how you're prepared for it and having the right people. And, certainly we went through some tough stretches. We had a couple, 4-game losing streaks in there. And I think the beauty of it was the way our guys responded, the way this building operated. You would have never thought that, and certainly we've all been exposed to different buildings, different structures, maybe have had more challenges in those situations. I think the people aspect of this thing was really special. And so, when you talk about some of those leaders, their willingness to embrace some change, some adjustments, some things that maybe feel different than what they're used to. And, when those guys follow that, certainly the young guys will follow that lead.
Give me your grades. Excuse me. Give me your grades for Kellen Moore's head coaching performance in 2025. Give me your grades. What would you grade head coach Kellen Moore as far as him being the head coach of the Saints in 2025? Put your comments in the chat.
How much does that help you to just know that you can brainstorm around pieces that the ones that you have now are going to be there? Because I assume that changed on you last year too, that you're kind of envisioning one thing and you have to adjust. Like, just knowing some stuff settled, like, does that help you just with what you're doing?
I think it's a great opportunity in the offseason to have some solidified, guys in place that, certainly you can build around. And I think that's what's great. We have a season of plenty of highs and lows, a lot of good film out there, a lot of good things that we can improve on. And we get to go through this thing collectively as a group and kind of paint the picture of what this thing needs to look like moving forward. And so, coaches certainly will do a lot of that. Players will be a part of that process as we go through this. And there's a lot of excitement around that.
How high is it on your list? Because I know you obviously have to do a whole process of evaluating.
And a lot of B's and B minuses.
How high is it on your list to get an extension with Chris Olave done?
Yeah, a couple of C's.
And are you optimistic that you guys will be able to do that?
Well, Chris is obviously an important player to us and had a really good season, but we haven't even really spent much time thinking about that right now. I mean, we've had a couple conversations with his agent, but that's part of that'll be part of this off season. I can't tell you how high it is or low it is. I don't have the whole list yet.
Kellen, are there any?
Yeah, he definitely deserves to be re-signed. I don't know about being like one of the highest paid, like top paid wide receivers, but he definitely put himself in a position where he needs to be at least like middle of the pack when it comes to that salary. I don't think he needs to be the highest paid. I don't think, it's to a point where you set the market, but I think Chris Olave showed with better quarterback play, he can thrive in the Saints offense. And he definitely deserves to, get an extension. Now, how much we're talking about here, I mean, I guess that's up to negotiations, but we all know how it goes sometimes. It's not about being the best. It's about, being available. And sometimes these wide receivers reset the market. And so I don't know, but I don't think the Saints should just overexert themselves to try to re-sign him. One thing that I liked about Chris Olave was at the beginning of the season when he was asked about his contract, he was realistic about his performances and some of the trials and tribulations he dealt with when it comes to the concussions and injuries. He was realistic about it, but credit to him, he responded in a major way, had more touchdown receptions and than he had in his entire career. So, I mean, you got to take those things into consideration, but he definitely deserves to be, one of the top paid wide receivers in the league. I don't think the highest paid. That's just my opinion.
Just off season, anybody who potentially missing either summer program?
I don't think anyone that should necessarily impact training camp that was in addition to people that already had injuries prior to the during the season. Nothing on the back end of the season necessarily, but that's what NFL seasons are. There's plenty of guys that'll go through a lot of cleanups and different things through the next week or two, and those guys will go on that process. OTAs, some guys go through a little bit of a process where they're working their way back, but training camp looks like a lot of optimism that a lot of guys will be available and ready to go.
What did Taysom Hill's injury end up being at the shoulder?
Yeah, just the AC.
Last year when you got hired, you singled out certain players, and Alvin was one of them. Do you still have the same belief? Obviously people say, oh, a running back over 30, what's happened the last couple years? Is it more injury and circumstances? Like, do you still have the same belief in Alvin?
Yeah, I love Alvin. What Alvin's meant to this organization has been awesome. He's come in, he's put in a ton of work. Obviously, these seasons all take different paths, and he's had to navigate an injury, and so the most important thing for him is just to get healthy and be back to his self. And so he's done a really good job of leading this group and providing that leadership, and so excited for him.
What are your impressions of the overall of the rookie class, the way that Quincy stepped up, the way that Devin, but even some people as Tyler Shuck, Kelvin Banks, and everyone included?
Yeah, I think that I think all of us would say we're pretty excited about the group as a whole. The things that they did, sometimes under different circumstances. Kelvin coming in, moving right to left tackle. He had some really good flashes during the course of the season. Obviously, there's room for improvement. Tyler, what he's done, that's been the focal point, I think, in the media about Tyler. But what Jonas Sanker and even Devin Neal coming in, Quincy, who am I missing? Yeah, Danny Stutzman. I mean, all these guys have really stepped up and done a great job. They've been professional about the way they've approached their craft. Even Vernon Broughton, who we didn't get a chance to see a lot of because he got hurt pretty early. I think we're excited about his prospects. Maliki at tight end, Fidel. I mean, all of them just to a man. I think we're really excited about this class and have a lot of high hopes for them going forward.
Yeah, this was a really good draft class. I mean, we didn't know what to make of it at the beginning, but credit to the Saints. I mean, they picked all 9 of the draft picks that they had. They didn't try to move up. They didn't try to move down. Like, they stayed in position, and they found some really good quality players. And, a few of those players that he named are cornerstone players. So that's all you can really ask for. I'm a firm believer that in order for you to, build a really good roster for years to come, you have to be able to hit in the draft. I say you got to be at least 80%, when it comes to your draft picks, in order for you to be able to have sustainable success. You look at some of these organizations that are synonymous with having really good drafts and actually re-signing their draft picks, like the Ravens, like the Packers, Vikings, these type of teams, they find really solid, good core players, and they're in playoff contention. They're in division winning contention more times than not. Ravens weren't as successful as they've been in years past, and neither were the Vikings. But it's some really good cornerstone players around the National Football League, and you got to give credit to the front office, who was under a lot of scrutiny from myself and so many others going into the draft process, the offseason process, but they rallied and put together a really good draft class.
It was one of your better classes in a while. Was there anything that you identified in your process to those players that changed from how you guys were doing things, or is it the introduction of the new coaching staff to get their input? What do you think kind of led to a better hit rate on the overall?
Yeah, look, we've had some really great classes, 2006, 2017 come immediately to mind, but there's been some other ones as well. So, it's gonna, you're gonna have years where, man, it seems like everyone's working out and doing well. And this is early, we shouldn't be judging our draft class after 1 year. We need to wait a few years, but we're pretty optimistic at this point. And, some of that's circumstantial, like, Jonas got his opportunity. Quincy got their opportunity because of injuries and circumstance. And so sometimes, you have years where you have draft picks that don't get those opportunities. And so it takes a while for them to be able to perform. So, but we're excited about it is the bottom line.
The pressures of Chase Young seeing how the contract you got him under last
Yeah.
season.
Well, my first impression is I wish he would have been able to play 17 games because I think when he came back after week 5, that really impacted our defense. And the way they performed from that point forward was pretty spectacular. I thought Brandon Staley and the entire coaching staff did a great job. The players bought into the scheme and the system, and just every week it felt like they got better and better, and all the way through the end of the season. So that was impressive.
Kellen,
Sometimes, guys thrive better when the spotlight isn't solely on them. Earlier in Chase Young's career, when he got signed by the then Washington football team, who became the Commanders, he came in with a lot of fanfare. He was the 2nd overall pick in the draft, and there were high expectations. He started his career with 7.5 sacks. And then all of a sudden, he started dealing with injuries. And, all of a sudden, you started to get that little tag of being injury prone. And then all of a sudden, he had that reputation of maybe taking a few plays off. And, and also when he was dealing with that neck issue, a lot of teams kind of shied away from him because, he didn't pass the physical. The Saints, they invested in him. They were willing to allow him to get the surgery and bet on him. And I just think that meant a lot to Chase Young. The fact that the team didn't, phone it in or give up on him just because he had a little bit of a neck issue. And I think it's paying dividends now. So if he can continue to build on this season, then I think that it can be a, start of something special. Maybe the spotlight not being on him as much, maybe coming to a smaller market team like the Saints where, not so much expectation is expected. Most of the time when people are talking about the Saints, they really have to go out here and earn the respect or earn the attention of the national media. So I just think that, Chase Young coming to the New Orleans Saints, it benefited both parties. It benefited Chase Young because he needed it. He needs a team to believe in him. And also the Saints, who need a guy who can take the defensive line into the next generation once Cam Jordan calls it a career.
How would you describe working with Brandon Staley and the job he did, especially, like Mickey said, once Chase Young came back in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I just give a ton of credit to our defensive staff. You can see the improvement, like Mickey was saying, throughout the season. Their ability to connect. It was a staff that a lot of people from different places, and so getting together and coming together and getting alignment, I thought was critical, and I thought they just did an excellent job of that. And their adaptability, I thought they did a really good job as the season progressed. Yeah, adaptability, willingness to adjust.
They definitely improved,
based off kind of matchups and personnel and all that fun stuff. But we got a bunch of really good people, and so I felt great about it.
You talked about it multiple times before, but what has been that special factor for Kellen that's allowed him to continue to ascend week in and week out?
Yeah, I think he's just really, truly at the end of the day, he's a humble, hardworking guy. He doesn't let mistakes snowball. To go play left tackle in this league as a rookie and to play as many hard downs as he's had to play against some of the premier players in this league. That's as hard as it is. That's as hard as it goes. And his willingness to just go for it, embrace it, get better each week. Tons of credit to him, and we're fired up to have him.
Several players, veteran or otherwise, have kind of expressed a desire to be a part of what's being built here. What does that mean to you, and how do you go about creating sort of that environment that players want to be a part of?
Yeah, no, I certainly think it comes down to people. It comes down to having really, really good people in the building, which certainly I think from an evaluation process, we've just put a ton of emphasis in for a number of years, and that's allowed us to have the type of locker room we have. And then just the consistency of how our players, how our coaches, how everyone operates from a day-to-day basis. I think hopefully it creates an environment that allows everyone to be their best.
Mickey, was there ever a serious consideration of bringing in a veteran quarterback after Derek retired, or did you guys kind of right away feel like let's go with the young guy?
Well, the timeline didn't fit that. I think the veteran quarterbacks that you would bring in and compete for your, the position were pretty much all gone.
Yeah.
By the time that all got settled out. So yeah, we had some discussions about that, but the opportunity really didn't exist.
And then part
I'm a call bull on that. I'm a call bull because I still think that they had time to find at least a serviceable quarterback. A quarterback that can come in and it didn't even have to be a starter. I just think that you need that veteran inside of the locker room. A guy that's been there, done that. I mean, he ain't got to be a champion or anything like that, but somebody that's been around the league that has broke down an install, did some things, like in the league in order for these young guys to be able to follow. But I think that the one thing that benefited them was that you have two coaches on the staff, and Doug Nussmeier, who is the offensive coordinator, and of course Kellen Moore, who's the head coach. They both played in the league at quarterback. So them understanding the ebbs and flows of being a quarterback in the National Football League probably made the New Orleans Saints have a cause to pause to bring somebody in because they felt that maybe somebody else can be able to come in. And also, I guess you can look at it from a standpoint of Taysom Hill, who has been a quarterback in the league as well. He still sticks his head in many of the, position rooms, not just the tight end, right? So maybe they were looking at Taysom Hill being that veteran guy who has started some games with the New Orleans Saints, and maybe they felt like that was good enough. But you combine Taysom with Doug Nussmeier and Kellen Moore, I think they felt that they had some veteran quarterbacks that these young quarterbacks can lean on. And then also, I just think that the New Orleans Saints understood that there wasn't a quarterback that they would have signed that would have came in to change the misfortunes of the Saints or expedite or speed up this rebuilding process. So you might as well just kind of just take your lumps, see what you have in Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck, which they did. And now that you see that, Spencer Rattler is a talented quarterback, to me, I feel like he is, he can be a starter in the league, in certain situations. And then, of course, we see Tyler Shuck catching on towards the end of the season. So, but they could have brought in a quarterback if they wanted to. I just think that they felt like they had some things that were beneficial to them that were already on the roster and a part of the staff.
two of that is, I mean, did you leave it up to Kellen and the coaching staff, or did you guys have long discussions about the ideal timeline for Tyler and all that, or like once you give them their roster, that's completely up to them? And then did you like the way that ended up playing out, obviously?
Are you talking about in terms
Like
of when Tyler
starting
played?
at the beginning of the season,
Yeah.
coming in.
So, I mean, that, who is starting, who is playing is a coach's decision. But certainly we had a lot of discussions about that during training camp, during the season. But yeah, obviously I like the way that turned out. I think it was exactly the right way to approach it. And I think Kellen and his staff did a great job of developing the position. We got, it wasn't just one young guy. We got 3 young guys in that room, and that's a difficult proposition for as a coach. And I thought they handled it perfectly.
Is that going to be a possibility for this offseason? You bring in, since Tyler is going to be your guy, like a veteran who's been there, done that can potentially.
It's a good question. We feel great about that room. You're always trying to raise the level of a room, trying to get better, trying to improve. I think one guy in that room that kind of lose sight is like Taysom was in that room the entire year. He's been in some of the best quarterback rooms in the entire NFL, and his leadership, what he brought to those guys, even when he's playing his role where he plays every other position, he brought an excellent form of leadership to those guys and experience that they were able to lean into.
Kellen, Cam DeMar already said he wants to play in 2026. Have you talked to Taysom about whether he wants to play in 2026 or retirement possibility?
We'll talk through all that process. I think for all these players, I think the goal really is, I'm just appreciative of their work. That's the most important thing. And then the offseason is the offseason for a reason. You let the emotions get away from all these seasons and all that sort of stuff, and then take some time. And, we'll have plenty of discussions, with everyone.
What is the timeline for y'all's sort of evaluation process this year? I know usually kind of take a week away and then how do you plan to do it?
Yeah, saying we're gonna, get the next 10 days, and I think Kellen's letting his staff, take the next 10 days or so. They'll come back and we'll walk through the evaluations, their evaluations of the players, and then from that we'll start generating our off-season plan.
Chris was saying that with Spencer Rattler, like, because he deserves another opportunity to start. Difficult here and Tyler. Would you be open to moving in? Did he express an interest in being traded out?
No, I mean, we're not anywhere in that. We haven't had any kind of discussions about that.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna trade. I don't think they're gonna try to trade Spencer Rattler, unless like a team is interested in him and they willing to give up a draft pick. I mean, we have Spencer Rattler, a 5th round draft pick. So if the Saints can get like a 4th or something like that, 3rd for Spencer Rattler, I think that's an offer that they can't refuse. But man, Spencer Rattler is going into his 3rd season, and despite what some Saints fans may think about Spencer Rattler as a quarterback, he's a guy that can be a backup in the league, as of right now, and the more experience he get, the longer he's in the league, the more comfortable he'll be. And if something was to happen, and Spencer Rattler had to come into the game, I don't think that Saints fans are just to a point where they just feel like all hope is lost. I mean, he did show some things out there, show some flashes that he can, command the offense. So I look at Spencer Rattler, unless, he ends up being traded, I look at him coming back and being that backup quarterback for the Saints. I don't think that you should try to move Spencer Rattler if you don't have to, or if a team offers you something, an offer that you can't refuse, then that's a completely different story.
Mickey, what role do you think, like, patience and not being overly reactionary has played in you building this thing, like, possibly 3 times now over the last couple decades, like, just not overreacting to the noise and giving guys time to do their job and grow, and maybe not even, like, pushing, like, hey, you got to get the young quarterback in there like some teams do. Like, how much do you think that helps with building this organization?
How much does it help? I don't know that I can answer that. That's just, that's really, I probably am overly patient.
To say the least.
Sometimes your greatest strengths become become a weakness. And so I'm really patient, I feel like. And, whether it helps or not, hopefully it does. I think it does, but I'll continue to be that way. Again, we're excited about Tyler. You're all excited about Tyler. We're excited about Tyler, but we have to remember that he hasn't had 17 starts yet. And so we're going to go into next season with these high expectations, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we also have to temper that by the fact that he's a rookie, not a rookie. He's a 2nd-year quarterback, and he's had less than a full season to start. So we got to keep that in mind as we go forward, that, there's building blocks here, and we cannot skip any steps.
I understand what he's saying, but I don't know. I think that Saints fans are just excited because of the skill set and ability of Tyler Shough. It's something that Saints fans haven't seen in a long time. I think the one thing that Tyler Shough has going for him is when the ball leaves his hands, when he throws the football, you just automatically believe that it's the right decision, and he's making the right decision. And you haven't felt that way since Drew was quarterback. So I think that a lot of people just like what they're seeing, and they're attaching on to it because it's solid quarterback play. And, I don't think people are looking at the possibility of the bottom falling out, because they feel like if he's playing at this level right now and he's trying to figure out what the hell he's doing at the quarterback position as a starter, only when a game really starts to slow down for him and he really picks up the speed of the NFL and what defenses are trying to do and defenses are how they're trying to attack him, like, he's really going to, really thrive. But at the same time, I get what Mickey is saying as well, because now you have tape on this guy that, like, he's not a well-kept secret anymore. Like, teams are going to be going into the season and into games trying to attack Tyler Shuck and trying to find, holes in a boat, so to speak. So I get what he's saying, but people are just too excited about this. I mean, the guy just has all the tools to be a really good quarterback. And you can look at it like Mickey is looking at it like, things could happen, or, it could just be, 8 games of some really good football play, and then he falls off the face of the earth. But Saints fans aren't looking at it that way. And it shouldn't be that way, especially if you can build around him, bring in some guys that can make some plays, and also accompany the aerial attack with a really good, solid running game. I think that you can build on that, where you don't have to put all of the pressure on Tyler Shuck, although he has proven that if you can put the team on his back from time to time, he's willing to carry him. You don't want that to happen. You want him to have a supporting cast as well.
Go ahead and just follow up on that exact thing by maybe getting a little overexcited about Tyler. But when you have somebody who does have some optimism at that position, is that like an attractive part and bring people to the organization? Like I know there's a lot of other things that go into that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I
think, for example, in free agency, I'm not going to necessarily use Tyler as an example, but players want to go to a place where they think they can be successful, and part of that success is definitely winning. And that if you have a quarterback prospect or a quarterback that you feel really good about, obviously that's attractive. It's attractive for coaches. It's attractive for players as well, and helps you in that free agency process.
I mean, that's something that I've said on this show on countless occasions. Like, not only is Tyler Shuck opening the eyes of the Who Dat Nation, he's opening the eyes around the National Football League. And I used the example of Noah Fant, to the tight end, when he left the Seattle Seahawks, and the Saints were interested in him. I mean, there was no interest on his part, right? Because he was wondering to himself, who the hell is going to throw me the football, right? But now it's like, okay, you're going into all season with a guy who is really talented, that shows flashes. Now, the Saints could be a destination spot for a guy that probably would have looked over this organization because they didn't have a quarterback that they felt could win them a game or get them the football. But now the Saints could possibly talk to a highly touted offensive free agent, and that guy may want to come in, rather as an offensive guard or something. He feels like, all I got to do is protect Tyler Shuck, we're going to find success. A wide receiver, a tight end. Like, it opens up endless possibilities for the New Orleans Saints. Now, we'll see. But at the end of the day, when you have a guy who is, considered a dude, that's really optimistic, and that's really positive for a team, especially if you're trying to build something, and people are going to want to come because they feel like all they have to do is do their part, and they're going to find success with that organization.
That happened for us, with Drew. And it happened really right after we got him. And then obviously as the years went on and he got better and better and put up these spectacular years, then, you go to the top of the list of places where players want to come to and coaches want to come to. So yes, it definitely is a benefit.
Going back to the transition at a time whenever Tyler did move in to become a starting quarterback, what lets you know that was the right moment for Kellen to switch him over there?
Well, I think that's
when you realize you ain't had nothing to lose.
Yeah, no, I think as we've, what I think Tyler did an excellent job of is, Spencer earned the right to start coming out of training camp. That was first and foremost. I think everyone was aligned on that. Spencer earned the opportunity. I thought Spencer played some really good football early in the season. I think he gave us an opportunity. We didn't win games enough, but he gave us a lot of really good opportunities. And then Tyler just had a really good vision and plan to get better. And whether it's in the classroom, whether it's being the scout team quarterback, his preparation, he was always ready if the opportunity presented itself. And so I think it was certainly a healthy combination of feeling like, we can take another step, we can get better from an offense collectively. But I thought also Tyler, more importantly, felt like he'd taken some steps that he was ready to, have an opportunity to play. And, I thought he did some really good things. There were still some bumpy roads, like we played some games that were were still hard early when he started, and he just kept staying steady, kept getting better, and I thought he grew as those opportunities presented themselves.
I think it was like a culminating to one moment, or was it a matriculation of a lot of things?
Yeah, he's got better. He's got better each week. I thought his ability to respond to some adverse situations, I think, was a really good indication of his ability to play football at a really high level in this league. And, when you throw a interception at Miami, you respond and play really good football in the second half and give yourself opportunities and then respond again the next week, at Tampa, in really rainy, challenging conditions and run the football for some big time plays. He just did a really good job of getting better.
Maybe this is probably too soon for this, but Terry Fontenot, just maybe try getting him back or.
Yeah, I mean that. I haven't thought about anything like that. Disappointed for Terry. I thought he did some really good things there. I think
I agree.
He built a really good roster, but sometimes those things don't work out. Feel bad for Terry and his family. I think the world of Terry Fontenot. I think he's a fantastic football administrator, and he'll land on his feet. He'll end up whatever he ends up deciding to do, and wherever he goes, whatever team ends up with him, they're gonna be lucky to have him.
And
He gonna bring him back. I think that Terry Fontenot did a good job with the Falcons. I think that a lot of the success that they had and the players that they brought in, the ones that have contributed to the successful moments with the Falcons, it was Terry's guys. And at best, you have a guy that knows how to scout talent. You got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London, you got Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr. You got some talent. So I would not be surprised if Terry Fontenot isn't I'd be surprised if he doesn't land somewhere that the Saints don't bring him back to be a part of their administration in some capacity, because to me, I think he did a good job as a general manager. I just think that maybe the Atlanta Falcons just wanted to turn the page completely and give Matt Ryan, who's probably going to be their team president, an opportunity to build the team in his image and bring in his guys to be able to do whatever Atlanta want to do. But would not be surprised if Terry Fontenot is back with the Saints.
Going back to the Trevor Penning trade from the deadline, what do you kind of take as a lesson as an executive when that happens? Just his development overall, trying him at both positions, drafting in, what do you kind of take from that as an executive?
Well, I think. Listen, he's not the first player that we drafted that our vision for him didn't really fit what his skill set was ultimately, and the development timeline didn't fit, and so that happens sometimes. And you go back and you look at it. Okay, what did we miss? We'll go through that. We've gone through that process. We'll go through it again. And look, I still think he has an opportunity to be a successful player in the league. It just didn't work out with us.
Mickey, what's your kind of take on your assets that you had this offseason, another top 10 pick in the draft, maybe some more cap flexibility like that? How do you kind of feel about where that stuff landed?
Yeah, I feel good about that. I think we're going to have an opportunity to impact our team, and I'm excited about I'm excited about the draft class that's coming up. The discussions I've had with Jeff and his staff. There's a lot of players that will fit us at a lot of different positions. So I'm excited about that. I think the depth of this draft class right now looks pretty good. And I think we're going to be in a position to kind of take the best player that's available that can impact our team, as opposed to, we have to have, this position or that position. Obviously there'll be positions that we prefer, but I don't think we're going to be in a position where, hey, we have to get, this particular position. So I'm excited about that.
Does that up the odds at all? The ever elusive possible trade back? If there is, you have to go a direction.
Yeah, it helps the odds. Yes.
Kellen, I know it's going to take a thorough review before you have your list, your priority list, but is first quarter offense, start of game offense? I mean, do you already know that that's going to be something you're going to have to do a deep dive on and figure out?
They'll certainly be on the checklist of items we just want to evaluate, and that's just collectively as a football team in all three phases, just starting faster. Obviously, we can see the numbers. We recognize the impact it had on some of these games, and we see a lot of the good football that we played in some of these other quarters. And if we can marry that up with the way we start, we'll be in a great position.
Mickey, do you get a sense of the optimism around town for this? Even in a 6-win season, the optimism around town. How do you process that? What do you feel about that? Do you pay attention to that at all?
Well, look, you can't. I'd probably be in a coma if I didn't recognize that there's optimism, and that's exciting. Look, I want our fans to feel optimistic and have a vision for, the same vision that we have for our team. So yes, I do feel it. I'm excited about that, just like I'm excited about our team. But I think one of the things that I do pretty well is tune out the noise. Tune out the noise when it's negative, and I think it's equally important to tune out the noise when it gets optimistic too. You have to, find that balance, and I think that's one of the areas that I do a good job with.
Kellen, what did you make of the job that Phil Galliano did as special teams coordinator?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of moving pieces there, and so I thought credit to Phil of kind of helping navigate that. From a punter battle, that kind of went through all of training camp, made a change at the kicker position midway through the season. Sheed obviously with the trade, halfway through the year, and so we did have a lot of moving pieces there, and so I thought I did a really good job of helping a lot of young players get ready and prepared to contribute on our football team in the special teams that we're a little bit new to that aspect of football, and so. Are there areas that we want to improve on and get better? Absolutely. And that's certainly something we'll do in all three phases.
Yeah, I don't think Phil Galliano is going to come back. I think that was a pretty Baskin Robbins vanilla answer by Kellen Moore, leaving the door open for, reevaluating that. And I'll be shocked if he comes back, man. Honestly, I think that special teams clearly was the weakest part of the team, and it left a lot to be desired. And it was way beyond just a kick return game, because even though Rashid Shaheed left, I thought Mason Tipton did a pretty good job at replacing him. I mean, he had that really good return against the Falcons, and he had a couple more. And it got to a point where he got so much respect in the special teams game, like kickers stopped kicking his way. So that wasn't the issue. It just didn't click. So I think that's a position group that they're going to evaluate, and I think they're probably going to change coaches.
Kellen, how would you assess just your first season of just in game as a head coach, that balance of calling plays offensively, but also kind of taking the full view of like what's going on in the game situations? How would you feel you did in this first year?
Yeah, like every area, there's going to be things that you're going to look back and want to improve on and get better and improve our process collectively as a football team and certainly as a staff. And so, I'm going to go through that whole process as well. I thought, calling plays and then managing the game management aspect of it. Obviously, you don't do that until you do it. And, so I feel like our process has gotten better, and we'll continue to try and improve that.
Did you feel like you had a comfort as a season, especially at the second half season? Did you feel like you had more of a comfort doing that?
Yeah, I think just, we had more time together on that task. We had more conversations. We were more prepared to be proactive in some situations. And so certainly feel better.
When you talk about special teams, like when I played like Jonas Sanker, who probably went into the season as a core special teamer and then becomes a starter, how does that impact that special teams group?
Yeah, I think the injury factor, is a big part of this. Our vision of Jonas is he's going to be a 4-core special teamer. And after 1 week, he's our starting safety, and he plays a ton of snaps there. And so obviously there was a next man up component of this. And so certainly some younger players that were able to contribute on special teams that maybe started on practice squad or started as kind of an inactive player that quickly became the key contributors there. I thought those guys got better as the season went on. They embraced those roles, and I'm excited for the growth opportunities that those guys have.
All the players talked about how they had trust and love to playing under Brandon Staley. How much confidence and ease did it give you during your first year having a defensive coordinator who could take care of that side of the ball for you?
Yeah, Brandon's done a phenomenal job for us. Obviously, my experience with him in the past, was a great resource, with our opportunity to team up together in Los Angeles for that 1 year. And so I thought Brandon did an excellent job of working with a staff that obviously, again, came from a number of different places, created an alignment. And then I thought the players and the coaches had a really good combination of buy-in and working really well together.
Maybe the projections when it comes to the salary cap number for 2026 still show what would be an overage for you all in that area, but the amount is sort of light work as compared to what you've had to deal with in the past, or you've navigated in the past. Does that change at all? Not necessarily signings and things like that, but the restructure plans, does that change at all sort of how you go about maneuvering around getting to compliance?
Yeah, I think just the volume of things that we need to do is really what changes. Those numbers, when you look at them at the end of the season for any team, there's a lot of nuance behind all of it, because you just see a number. You don't see how many players are under contract, how many voids exist, how many of these, balloon numbers exist for the next year that you knew all along you weren't going to, that wasn't going to be their contract. So there's a lot of nuance to it, but obviously over the last 2 or 3 years, those things that we have to do to get under the cap have diminished, and this will be it'll be the lightest work that Kai has to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, they did a good job, and credit to them for staying put. When the team really needed some players, and they probably could have went out and got a seasoned veteran that could have filled that void that was missing. But a lot of the decisions that the Saints made by bringing in some young guys like Jalen Polk, making a trade for Devon Bailey, these players are on rookie deals, and even the players that they're signing. I mean, these players are 23, 24. I was going to start this podcast talking about Damian Alford, the CFL Canadian Football League wide receiver that the Saints just signed. He was the first overall pick in the CFL draft. This is a 6'6", 220-pound wide receiver, runs a 4.5, 4.6, and and he's only like 23, 24 years old. So the New Orleans Saints are trying to get younger here, and they're getting guys who are on these rookie deals, and they're not setting themselves up for disaster going into the offseason in 2026. And what Mickey just alluded to, that it makes the whole process that Kai Harley and his accounting staff have to do makes it very easy than years past. So credit to them, man, where they can go into free agency and possibly bring some guys in that can definitely not just be a part of the team, but be impactful players like DeMario Davis was when he signed with the team, and other players in years past, like Darren Sharper. I'm talking about on the field, not all off the field stuff, but y'all get what I'm saying. Like when you can go out and get a guy who can be a game changer for you and, pay dividends for you, and just instead of having a guy that you hope pans out and you basically giving him the league minimum to be a starter when there's probably going to be some opportunities there to grow.
And over the last couple of years. So that's a good feeling. Yeah, we're going to definitely feel good about that. And remember that COVID year, and that impact on our cap and every team's cap. That was a blow out of left field for us, and so we've had to overcome that. And it takes a while.
It's kind of a few parts I want Tokyo's perspectives on it. For you, Mickey, was Jalen Polk somebody that y'all were high on going into the draft? And, and is that why you wanted to pursue him then for Kellen? What's kind of your vision for him once he's
Yeah, we're definitely high on Jalen in that draft, and we talked about taking him at certain points, and so obviously New England took him, and the opportunity came up. They had changing staff there, and we had an opportunity to get him. We knew he's not going to be able to play this year, but just looking with our eye forward, we're really excited about him, and his rehab's gone well, and he's been great in the building, great in the room, and Kellen, take it.
Yeah, again, I think just echoing a lot of the same things. I think really good example of just Mickey and the crew being really proactive and recognizing an opportunity that from a longevity standpoint, it's going to give us, a guy that we all felt really good about. I was in Philly for 2 years ago when he went through the draft process. Everyone felt really good about Jalen. Again, an example of, sometimes a change of scenery can be really beneficial for someone. He has been excellent this entire process. For our opportunity to kind of go through the rehab process with him here with our guys has been excellent. His work in the classroom where he can still be, around those guys.
And he's only 23 years old,
I
man.
think it's going to provide him an opportunity to be just so much further ahead when he gets to the spring ball where, he's not going through that transition now. He's already gone through that process. And so obviously we feel like he's going to be able to play a really beneficial role for us.
I may be getting way ahead of myself here, I apologize. But with Drew expected to go into the Hall of Fame, is there a chance that you all would request to play in that game, knowing that it's an extra weekend, extra preseason game? I don't know if that's good or bad or something that you would want to do.
Yeah. We've thought about that, obviously. And we don't want, I don't want to just assume that he's going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Man, please stop it. Knock it off. Knock it off.
But yeah, I think that I think it'd be a good thing for our team to experience that, and experience, that whole experience of the Hall of Fame is, I think it's really good for anyone involved in football and anyone who's a fan of football. And the fact that if Drew gets in, I think it'd be a great thing for us.
Man, let's just go ahead and address this. If Drew Brees is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, they just need to go ahead and just throw the whole Hall of Fame in the trash. Like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing here? All I know is, like, if you want to go to Canton, Ohio, go ahead and get your ticket right now. That's all I got to say. Like, just go ahead so you can save some money. Hall of Fame game come around. You ain't got to be around this thing scrounging, trying to go to Ohio, trying to get these high price plane tickets. Go ahead and get your ticket right now. Right now. Like, I hope that Jari Evans, which he should be, accompanies Drew Brees, but it's a no-brainer here. Like, go ahead and get your tickets to Canton right now, man, so we can go ahead and cheer. Because I'm even going. Like, I'm going to Canton. I'm going to show up in Canton. I'm going to that. I'm going to that Hall of Fame game. I will be in attendance. Because, I mean, look, something wrong if Drew Brees not a first ballot Hall of Fame.
Playing that game.
Would that factor into your guys' decision of whether to go away for camp or not?
He ain't even got to knock on
We'll talk
wood.
through that whole process. I
Yeah,
think
there's nothing that
there's
should
a lot of
stop it.
factors with that, going from what your regular season timeline looks like to certainly what your preseason schedule is going to look like. And so that's an off-season process we'll go through. And obviously we've had a lot of benefits of just the different opportunities we've had.
Maybe you brought Drew and Jari into this organization. Your thoughts on their candidacies for the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, they should be in there. Slam dunk.
No doubt.
That's what I think.
Why though?
Oh, I mean, I just think when you look at their body of work over time, two of the most, I mean, obviously Drew. Do we even need to talk about Drew's candidacy? We shouldn't.
For real. I wasted people
But
time.
Jari, I mean, he was one of the most important elements on an offense that had historically over that time frame, and you've written this, Jeff. It was unlike anything seen in the NFL in the history of the league. I mean, that period of time where I think we were number one in offense for 6 times, maybe. The amount of points, the amount of yards, just the offensive output, and Jari was a huge part of that. And obviously, I think there's a disadvantage when you play in one of the smaller markets that isn't, no offense to any of you, a media hub. But I think Jari would already be in had he played for the Bears. Or
that's a fact.
The Giants. Or
that is a fact.
Teams, he'd already be in. That's
a fact.
Do you think his role at guard and the way you all set up the offense around a 6-foot quarterback?
Yeah.
It's kind of overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, I do think it's overlooked, and the interior of the line, I think oftentimes gets overlooked in our league. The importance
unless they suck
and guards.
Then everybody know who they are.
Certainly with Drew, keeping that spot, 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage was important to protect that, and Jari and the guys that he played with, over the years did a great job during that time frame. And again, Jerry was a huge element of that. Yeah, I think he should definitely be in the Hall of Fame.
Kellen, I know in a whirlwind since he got drafted, and you talked about him staying here, and his wife's pregnant, and
Yeah.
talked about a checklist of things. I know you talked about going from here to your house and kind of focused on this. Is there anything that you're kind of, your first chance in a few years to maybe sink into an off season culturally too?
I've had a few transition off seasons, so I'm excited for this one. This is going to be build off of the previous year. We're excited to just be here and just get to experience the city, the community, Mardi Gras, Pelicans last night, going to that game with the kids. And so we just love that.
That is true, man. He done spent like 4 off seasons moving. Like, man, it's tough being a coach. He went from the Cowboys. Then after he left the Cowboys, he went to the Chargers 1 year. Then from the Chargers to Philly. Then from Philly to New Orleans. So, yeah, Kellen Moore and his family, like, they done been through a lot, man. A lot of changes over the last 3 to 4 years. So,
there's plenty of steps. I think, I think again, it's just growth. Just keep getting better, keep communicating at a high level. And so, he'll put together, I'm sure, an excellent offseason plan to take advantage of the time that he has.
I'm curious about how you feel about the number of sacks he took. Is that kind of an area where you can get better in terms of exactly?
Yeah, I think that's just a collective thing. I don't think that's necessarily, does Tyler want to get better? Absolutely. Can we get better from a protection standpoint, play calling standpoint? Obviously there's plenty of statistical things that we can look at and say, hey, let's get better here.
Maybe into the season, there were players that weren't available due to injury and things like that, felt more related to timeline than anything else when they got injured. But with this year and coming off of how things were in 2024, where injuries were such a big impact, how do you feel about how that process went in terms of Ted Rath's job and the job that they were giving you guys on the field?
Yeah, I think I think Ted and his staff did a great job. Our soft tissue injury rates were significantly impacted in a good way. Obviously, you don't want any injuries. Some of them were circumstantial. So, I feel pretty good about where we're at. We're going to take a look at it again. The things that the injuries that happen, when they happen, how they happen. But I feel really good about that department.
yeah, this has been a really good year, man. I want to give a special shout out to the medical staff. They've been on the topic of conversation and have taken a lot of ridicule over the years, but especially the Saints organization, not making a change and keeping some of the same practices when it comes to the medical staff. You got to give them credit, for bringing in some really good strength and conditioning coaches, guys that are monitoring what these players are doing, understanding the technology and some of the things that technology can bring to the table to help these guys stay upright. I mean, you didn't really see a laundry list of players every single week. Like you've seen players on the list, but it was just like little small issues. They probably just took it light during the week, revved it up towards the end of the week leading up to the game. But, at the end of the day, guys are going to get hurt. I mean, it's a physical sport that they play, but I mean, you're seeing a lot of players that were available and a lot of players that were struggling to be in the lineup over the last couple of years. They played quite a few games and it paid dividends. That's the reason I feel like, a lot of these players had some of their best seasons as a Saint, and some of these guys were able to live up to potential, and these young guys were able to develop at a rapid pace because they got more reps. They got more experience of being out there without having to worry about the nagging injuries or trying to rehab, trying to get back on the field. So when you have a strength and conditioning staff that can actually get guys where they need to be so they can be upright on Sundays, on Mondays when the team has to play on Thursdays, that's a huge part of the battle that teams face every single year. So credit to the strength and conditioning staff, the medical staff, for getting these guys upright to be available to give it their best shot. I think that's the reason why this developmental process of these players happened at such a rapid pace this season, because a lot of reps were being played by a lot of these young players, and years past that probably wouldn't have happened.
Kellen, would you approach training camp the same way as you did last year? like with the workload based on how many interviews you had, or is that something that you have to evaluate for a while?
Yeah, I think you have to evaluate it. We have to go back all the way through our process for this last calendar year. Where can we get better? Where can we find more opportunities? There's always a balancing act in training camp. That's our best opportunity for physical practices. And so we do have to have them physical, be a little bit uncomfortable, push through some elements. That's why I like, being here in the heat has some pros to that. But we got to get ready for a season, and those seasons are long, and we're expecting those seasons to be even longer moving forward. And so, that's a process that we'll just go through.
Mickey, for Cam Jordan to finish with 10.5 sacks after the last 2 years, what do you make of his season, and do you expect that type of rebound?
Well, nothing that Cam does surprises me. When you've been with someone for 15 years, nothing he does surprises me. His greatest quality is he just is always available. It's a miracle on some level. But he's had lots of these years where he's actually, produced in the second half of a season, better than the early parts. And so I'm not surprised, excited about it, excited for him, excited that he still has the same joy when he comes to work every day. He's always positive. He's always excited to be here. And man, that hasn't changed in 15 years. So, do we expect 10.5 sacks from him? No, I wouldn't say we expected that, but I'm excited for him.
I just wanted to get your take on Alvin season 2. I know Kellen touched on it earlier. I'm just curious on your take.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate he got hurt toward the end of the season. But Alvin's always prepared. He's always he's a talented guy. I don't see a lot of difference there. And I haven't had a conversation with Alvin, since the season ended. So I'm excited to have that with him and see where he's at in his mind space. But Alvin's he's been such an important part of our team for the last 9 years, whatever it's been. And he's a talented player, and we have to give him the right opportunities, and we'll see how that goes going forward.
Look, man, I like Alvin as well as the next man, but we can't be talking about Alvin like he 25, 26 years old. Like, I still think that Alvin has something left in the tank, but no way, shape, or form should Alvin Kamara go into 2026 as, like you just putting all your hopes and dreams in a 31-year-old running back. Like, I think that you need to have somebody that can accompany him and maybe even share some of the same type of abilities and skill sets that Alvin does. That's the reason why, I've been advocating and lobbying for Jeremiah Love. I think that, Alvin still has something to bring to the table, but Alvin has been beat up quite a bit over the last couple of years. And, I think that the Saints have thrived as a running unit when they had a running back by committee, like when you had the Reggie Bush and the Pierre Thomas, when you had the Pierre Thomas and Darren Sproles, when you had Mark Ingram and AK, like you need that 1-2 punch, right? I just think that teams thrive and they find a lot of success when they do have those 1-2 punches. I know that you have those running backs like the Jonathan Taylors, like the Derrick Henrys, like guys that can be every down backs for you, Christian McCaffrey, but those guys take a lot of wear and tear, and you need a lot of positive things to go in your favor for those guys to be available each and every week. And those guys take a pounding every single game when they are every down backs. I just think that you need someone at this stage of Alvin's career that can accompany him. Even Alvin has alluded to this. Even he talked about having somebody that can kind of alleviate some of the pressure off of him. And Alvin is so much of a pro. I don't even think that would bother him. I think that he would actually embrace that. I think that he would actually be happy that you will have someone that's young, that's coming in, that can share the workload with him, that can make things much easier for him to be able to do his job where everything isn't on his shoulders. So that's something that the Saints are going to have to address, and I'm pretty sure that he will. Mickey Loomis is doing his famous poker face type act that he does every single year, where he really talks but doesn't really tell you anything. but he understands where Alvin is in his career, and he understands that this team needs to be able to support Tyler Shuck, the young quarterback, and not just because Tyler has found some success going to 2026, having him throw the ball all over the place. You want to be you want to have a complementary offense where if the passing game isn't ideal that Sunday, then a running game can pick up the slack and vice versa. So I think that you'll probably see them address the running back position, and hopefully, they can bring in somebody like Jeremiah Love, or maybe in free agency. I've been talking about Breece Hall as well. Maybe you can see Breece Hall. If the Jets can, come to an agreement with him, maybe he can be somebody that can come in and be able to provide a spark to the Saints running game.
I mean, when you win 4 of your last 5 games like this and have, momentum in a number of ways, what's the biggest positive impact that can have on a coaching staff, on players returning, and all of that good stuff?
Yeah, I think it just leads into our off-season program. I mean, in 15 weeks, OTAs start, the phase 1. So it's like, for these guys, I think the optimism and the way we finish obviously provides some juice there. And then, it just puts these guys in a position for this offseason. These guys go away, they go do their own thing for a little bit, but it puts them in position to have a really good plan to get better. And then before you know it, we'll be back together, getting better and taking advantage of that opportunity.
Mickey, the way you raved
One or two more questions, please.
the way you raved about Jari Evans and his ability to help set up the offense for Drew. You have a taller quarterback now, but you have your tackle short up. How much is the interior of the offensive line going to be a priority?
Yeah, well, I think that the number one thing there is we've got to stay healthy. Eric McCoy is a really, really good player, but he's been injured the last few years, so we have to examine that. Hey, are we putting him in difficult positions? How can we correct that and not let that happen again? Caesar's a really good player, and yet we've got to get more out of him as well. Obviously, Dylan stepped in after Trevor, the Trevor trade. I thought he did a good job. So we'll evaluate that interior offensive line. But, and I think, by the way, we had a number of guys step in. Luke came in and played for Eric and did a good job. But we're going to have to evaluate that position. And we've got some free agents there. So it's going to be an area that we pay a lot of attention to in this offseason.
Oh, they better. He already alluded to it. I like Eric McCoy, but the injuries are starting to pile up. And I'm not saying you get rid of Eric McCoy, you don't, but you definitely need to address, that position. Rather is you draft somebody that can play guard, switch to center if necessary, but they definitely have to fix this interior. Like, you got to fix this interior. I mean, trying to make this thing work and trying to convince yourself that, okay, man, these guys have what it takes, which I'm not going to say they're the worst I ever seen, but I mean, Cesar Ruiz, like, you can do better than that. I'm not saying that Cesar Ruiz doesn't have a place in the National Football League. He does. I just think that the Saints could get better at guard. Dylan Radins, think you can do better there, right? Eric McCoy, I don't think that you can do better there, but if he's hurt and, he's been dealing with those injuries, you got to find somebody that can actually come in. Like, you have to approach this offseason like you need 3 interior linemen. And I mean that respectfully towards Eric McCoy, but I'm just looking at it like he has missed a lot of games over the last couple of years. So you have to look at it that way. So I think that's top priority. I think that should be top priority for the Saints, and I think that's something that they definitely need to address. They need some maulers in the middle, and I think if you do that, it'll help Tyler Shuck, and it definitely can help this running game. I think that's why the running game hasn't been able to get started. I think that's one of the main reasons why Alvin has taken a step back. Like, they have got to fix this interior line, or you're going to keep on running into this brick wall that they have been running into for quite some time.
Going back to the lighter, you don't have to do as much work with the new running back tackles. Does that allow you to be aggressive if you want to be and go on?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it would. We got to be judicious. We can't just go out there and just start, throwing contracts around and doing things that we wouldn't ordinarily do. But we will have some different opportunities.
Thanks, Kellen.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it. there you have it. All right, end of the year press conference with Kellen Moore and General Manager Mickey Loomis. Look, I will go ahead and give my grade. When it comes to this team, the front office at the beginning of the season, I think that we all, had them in D plus D minus territory. I think by the end of the season, I think I would give the front office a solid A minus or B plus. And the reason why I'm saying that is I think they did a really good job at drafting players. I think that they did a really good job at really cutting their losses. I think they did a really good job at staying firm to getting the salary cap to a situation where they can be, contenders, right, for years to come, where they can be guys that's, that can go out here and possibly bring somebody in that can change the misfortunes of a position. So I think they did pretty solid. As far as the coaching staff, I'm gonna give them a B. I'm gonna give them a B. I think they did a good job, all things considered. I think we all knew that this was a rebuild for the Saints. We knew that it was going to be a struggle. Some of us didn't want to see the struggle, but at the end of the day, I think we understood that this was going to be an uphill battle for the black and gold. But credit to Kellen Moore, never lost the locker room. And down the stretch, they got better. And I know some people will say, well, look at the schedule. It got a little bit more laxed, got a little bit more easier down the stretch. But at the same time, I mean, we start to see guys come alive. We start to see players that were young step up. We start to see players not making the same mistakes twice. We've seen some sound tackling. We've seen a defense step up. And we also seen guys like Chris Olave come alive. We seen Jawan Johnson, who was under a lot of scrutiny, throughout the season, step up. So I think that they did a really good job, and I think they set themselves up for the future. And if you feel like, maybe that's a little bit too lenient of me to give them such high grades, just think about it. Think about how you felt going from the 2024 season to the 2025 season versus how you feel in 2025 going into the 2026 season. I guarantee you the energy is completely different, and you're way more optimistic about where this team is going than you were in years past. And I think if you look at it from that standpoint, I think you have to give them the credit that they deserve, that they're actually trending in the right direction. I'm going to read a few comments, then I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here, folks. But thank you all for being a part of this watch along. We got 300 people watching this in real time. This is live right now. I ask that you hit the like button if you enjoy the State of the Saints podcast. We'll be here throughout the entire offseason talking Saints football. I was originally going to be doing a video about Damian Alford. Damian Alford, the Saints signed to a future contract. Damian Alford started his career at the University of Utah, if I'm not mistaken. Had a really good, solid season, man. He's 6'6", 225 pounds. And he was the first overall pick in the CFL draft. He ran a 4.46 at the Big 12 Pro Day. And he's a guy that has a really good catch radius, really good after the catch. He can high point the ball. There were a couple of passes that I've seen in some of his CFL games where the quarterback just threw it up and just trusted Alfred to go out there and get it. His nickname is Moose, which I think is a pretty cool nickname. And he has this celebration where he basically does the little antler ears or whatever. Pretty cool, man. So I don't know, man. I think that the Saints need someone like this if he can come in and do something, especially like in those red zone situations, or even make this team in any capacity. I think it's great. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to make the team, but the Saints have given him an opportunity to do so. But everything that I've seen from some of the film that I watched when he was in college, from having over 1,100 yards in 1 year, and also starting his CFL career, he just I think he was injured, but he came in, had 5 receiving touchdowns by year's end for the Calgary Stampeders. So I mean, he did some really good things in the CFL. And, I know some people are like, oh, man, it's the CFL. But being a number 1 pick in any, draft, man, that shows you that league feels like they're looking at you to be able to maintain some level of momentum. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out, and maybe this guy end up making the team. But we'll talk about that a little bit at a later date. Several teams have gotten much better by fixing their offensive line by using free agency. Yeah, I think that's something that you can actually go and invest in. The Saints, has done a really good job over the last few years, in free agency. I think that Larry Warford was a really good addition to the team. When they signed him, he had a couple really good years with the Saints. A couple Pro Bowls. The Saints have gotten guys who they got in free agency. Rather it's like right tackle, left tackle. Those guys come in. I think that James Hurst did a pretty good job when the Saints signed him. So you can find these offensive linemen in free agency, especially on the interior that can actually come in. But if you can bring in a young guy through the draft, maybe, go through the draft process and do some scouting, I would rather bring somebody in that you can actually build around, that you can actually build some momentum with this offensive line. You already drafted your two anchors on the left and the right, Tallahassee Fuaga, and you also have Calvin Banks. So if you can get that interior going with some young guys, you can have yourself some studs across your offensive line and get that running game going and protect Tyler Shuck where he can really go out there and thrive. Let's see. Mickey Loomis can get aggressive with the money this year since we have the quarterback. We just need the playmakers. And how can you really see progression in playmakers by getting aggressive? Well, look, I think that they got some guys on this team that we haven't seen that can make some noise. Like they talked about Jalen Polk. I think that Jalen Polk can be a guy. I think that we haven't seen him, and that's one of the main reasons why I think Saints fans feel like, well, maybe we're in need of something. And also Trey Palmer. I think Trey Palmer is a guy, in my opinion, just that got lost in the shuffle in Tampa. I mean, it's hard for you to be able to compete in a room where you got Jalen McMillan, you got Emeka Ibuka, and you got Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, right? Then you got Cade Otton getting passes thrown at him at the tight end positions. And you also have Sterling Shepard, a guy that's a veteran that has a rapport with Baker Mayfield that dates back to their time at the University of Oklahoma. So I just think he kind of got lost in the shuffle. But I can remember, man, Trey Palmer, it was, I think it was the wild card game where Tampa played against Philly and upset them. Trey Palmer, I think he led the team in receiving yards in that game. I think that Trey Palmer can be a really good addition to the Saints alongside Chris Olave and Jalen Polk. But, if you want to bring somebody else in, a rookie, to come in to be able to be a part of that wide receiver room. And I forgot about Devon Vele as well. We've seen flashes of greatness from him as well. So, I mean, the sky's the limit for the New Orleans Saints. I go into the offseason way more optimistic about the wide receiver room than I did when this season ended last year. So I think that there's a lot of guys on this football team we have not been privy to seeing in a Saints uniform. So, because of that, you're feeling like something is missing, but it's just the fact that those guys are going to provide what the Saints are missing. Saints fans just haven't seen it yet. And, so you're under the impression that I haven't seen it, so maybe they need this, that, and the third. But I think that the Saints wide receiver room is in way better shape than any of us probably thought that it would be. But I do think they're going to probably draft a wide receiver. But if they just go and get one wide receiver in the draft, I would be okay with that, because I think that Jalen Polk is going to be a really good addition to the Saints. I know Devon Vele is a really good addition to the Saints, and I think Trey Palmer is going to be a really good addition to the Saints. So they got some guys. I'm not sure if Fuaga has the mean, nasty streak I want in offensive linemen. I disagree with that. Like, I think that Tallahassee Fuaga was dealing with a lot of injuries throughout the season. Like, there were a lot of things that were going on with Tallahassee that a lot of fans weren't privy to. The fact that he was out, I'm gonna just put it to you like this: the fact that he was out there for the weeks that he was out there with some of the things that he was dealing with, from the back issues and some of the lower extremity issues, is remarkable, and it's a testament to his toughness and his willingness to go out there and battle alongside his teammates. So I think a lot of what we've seen from Tallahassee, when it comes to like not really being as dominant as we would like, had a lot to do with the injuries that he was dealing with. And like I said, just the fact that him being out there, it was a testament to his resolve and his toughness. So I don't have an issue with Tallahassee. I think that off season where he can get his body right, get himself back on track. I think that you're going to see that the Saints are in really good shape at right tackle and left tackle. So that, I think that the injuries like played a huge role with Tallahassee, but credit to him for being out there the weeks that he was dealing with those injuries. I'm gonna stroll up a little bit, and I'll go with Vornell says, I think Mickey Loomis needs to go get Bruce Hall. I believe you mean Brees Hall. Yeah, I mean, look, I've been lobbying for that for a minute. And, it's amazing to me how, when people always, when I'm on social media, people like to say that I be biting and taking people's stuff. But it's amazing to me how I can say certain things and then people just run with it, don't give me no credit for it. But I digress. I've been talking about Brees Hall for a hot minute since the whole contract situations dating back earlier in the season when the New York media was constantly asking him about, getting a contract and, the Jets not giving him one. And I was like, man, if they don't want Brees Hall, like that's something that the Saints definitely should consider signing him if the Jets don't. Like, so I mean, the Saints seem like they do a really good job when they bring in New York Jet players. I mean, Jonathan Velma, Mario Davis, right? I mean, it seems like they do a really good job when they bring in Jets. It seems like they know how to use Jets players better than the Jets do. So, but yeah, man, look, I like Brees Hall, and if you don't draft a running back, you don't get Jeremiah Love, and I wouldn't mind the Saints going after Brees Hall. I think that Brees Hall is a thoroughbred that's locked in the barn right now. So I definitely think that the running game would definitely improve if Brees Hall was one of your featured backs. They need a Mike T type wide receiver that's tall that can be that possession type guy. They got that in Devon Bailey. I mean, Devon Bailey was actually serving that role, being that guy that was in the middle of the field, that was getting those contested catches. The chemistry between Tyler Shuck and Bailey was top notch. He unfortunately he had that shoulder injury that put him on IR, but they got one. They got him. Why would they pay Brees Hall? Because he's a really good running back. That's the reason why. And he would be a huge contribution. I mean, a huge benefit for this team if he was to come to the Saints. So yes, that's the reason why you pay him. Look, you don't ask questions about, why should you pay a guy if he can come in and be a difference maker for your team? Like, you ask those questions if you don't feel like that guy has the capability of being able to be a game changer for your team. And I know that the Jets aren't the most watchable team in the NFL, but Brees Hall has done some really remarkable things in the Jets uniform and has been one of the bright spots of their offense throughout the time he's been with the team. So that's the reason why you bring him in, because he can be a difference maker. I'm excited to see what KM can do with Polk. I guess you mean Kellen Moore. If he ends up being good, that solves our wide receiver room pretty much. Yeah, I think that Jalen Polk just needs a change of scenery. I think that, the whole New England Patriot regime change, and him leaving and coming to the Saints, I think it can help him out. But, I'm interested to see how his season would have ended up if he would have stayed healthy and Drake May was playing the way that he was. You probably wouldn't have been able to touch him and I think that you probably would have had a lot of people around the NFL talking about how good he was. I'm excited already. Read that says tight end is also a need. I agree with that. I think that the Saints definitely need one of those big possession, tough catch, tough, gritty type tight ends. I think that's something that's missed. I think that, Juwan Johnson, gives you that wide receiver / tight end type role, but, it's just something like it's just something about a George Kittle, Travis Kelsey, Brock Bowers type tight end, where a guy that just physical, right? They're gonna stiff arm you. You know what I'm saying? When they get the ball, they become extremely violent, right? And also at the line of scrimmage, you know what I'm saying, throwing those blocks. There's nothing like a classic, all around tight end. And that's something that the Saints definitely need. It's rather, they get a guy who's a pass catching guy and, he sucks at blocking, right? Or he's below average at blocking. Or they have a guy who's a really good blocker but can't catch that well. I would like to see the Saints have a guy who is well-rounded as a tight end. And I think that can be something that can be great for the Saints. And if you look at Kellen Moore's career, he has always had that guy, like during the time when Dallas, when they had Dalton Schultz, right? He also, had, tight ends, when he was in with the Chargers. I mean, I could think of Gerald Everett. I mean, he had one of his best years, as the Chargers tight end, with Philly, he had Dallas Goedert. So, Juwan Johnson had his best year statistically as a tight end, but I still look at Juwan Johnson as a wide receiver masquerading as a tight end. So I just think that the Saints definitely need that one guy that can be that all-around tight end for him. But I want to say thank you all for checking out this edition of the State of the Saints podcast. Once again, my name is TJ Jones. I ask that you subscribe to the channel, stay locked in, tapped in with us throughout the entire 2026 offseason for the New Orleans Saints, from the Senior Bowl coming up in the next couple of weeks, NFL Combine, the NFL Draft. We'll be here. We'll be here to give it to you, talk to you about it. Any additions that the Saints make, we'll be right here talking about it right here on this channel. Hit that like button. You can follow me on social media at TJAYJones8. And we really do appreciate the love and the support from the Who Dat Nation throughout the years. Thank you so much. And we're still going strong and we're not slowing down. Till next time, all I got to say is, Who Dat?
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
All I got to say is, Who Dat?